I stared at the screen for a full minute before the meaning even sank in. The video autoplayed again. A golden shimmer of laughter. Clinking glasses. That ridiculous Drunken Love remix playing too loud in the background. And then the camera panned across the room. Rachel, Michael, even Aunt Janice, who lived 2 states away and hadn't traveled in years, was there, wearing a sequin blazer and sipping wine like royalty. But me? I wasn't even tagged. Not in the video. Not in the captions. Not in the RSVP list. Not invited. The truth sat in my chest like a stone dropped in a still lake, making ripples, slowly sinking, heavy and cold. I refreshed the page. I did it again. And again. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there was a private message I didn't see. Maybe I got the date wrong. Maybe it was an oversight. A mistake. A cruel prank? I scrolled. Nope. Rachel's caption. Wouldn't have been the same without each of you. #blessed. #family first. Each of you, I whispered. My own voice surprised me. It sounded like someone else, cracked, confused, too soft. I sat there numb. My thumb hovered over the comment section. For a split second, I considered typing something. A joke, maybe. Something light like, guess my invitation got lost in the mail, as if that would fix the acid slowly bubbling up my throat. I didn't type anything. I just sat there. The glow of the screen lit up my otherwise dark apartment. It was 8:47 p.m. My Friday night plans had involved a bath, a crime documentary, and my favorite pint of cookie dough ice cream, not realizing that my entire family had decided I wasn't even worthy of being informed, let alone invited. The doorbell rang. I froze. Another gut punch? Another reveal? A prank? What if they sent me something now to make it worse? I stood, walked to the door in a daze, and opened it to find a delivery guy. He handed me a small bouquet, daisies my favorite. No card. No note. Just a wrapped bouquet of cheerfulness I couldn't possibly absorb. I looked at the guy. Are you sure this is for me? He squinted at the receipt. Vanessa Carter? I nodded slowly. Yup. Have a good night. And just like that, he was gone. I stood in my hallway, holding the flowers in one hand, the phone in the other, and a heartbreak I didn't know how to categorize growing heavier in my chest. This wasn't just forgetting my birthday. This wasn't a scheduling error. This was intentional. This was erasure. 2 hours later, I watched the Instagram stories again. They'd rented a wine and piano bar in the historic district downtown. One of those cozy, upscale spots with velvet chairs and live music and mood lighting so perfect it looked like a movie set. They were all dressed to the nines. Rachel in a soft blue satin gown. Michael in a charcoal suit. My cousin Leah in her usual backless sparkle. Laughter.
Cheers.
To family. To what family? Mine?
No.
Not anymore, apparently. I put my phone down. My hands were shaking. For years, I'd accepted being the outsider. The helper. The tag-along. I made the birthday cakes. I watched the kids when no one else would. I helped clean up when everyone else was tipsy and dancing barefoot on tables. I didn't complain when I wasn't in group photos. I didn't question why my seat was always near the kitchen. But this was different. This was loud silence. This was them looking at the guest list and deliberately skipping my name. And that meant something. I walked over to the window and looked out into the night. The city glowed, people laughing, couples walking hand in hand, cars honking, life continuing, while something inside me stopped. A part of me, small, tired, and hopeful, simply broke. And no one noticed. Later that night, I texted my mom. I know I wasn't invited. Just want to understand why. Read at 10:22 p.m. No reply. I tried again. This time to Rachel, my sister.
Hey.
Just saw the photos. Did I do something wrong? Read at 10:25 p.m. Still no reply. I sat on the couch, arms crossed, not crying, because even the tears refused to come. It was worse than anger. It was cold.
Still.
The kind of silence that makes you rethink every memory you ever had. The daisies sat in a vase now, unopened, untouched. I stared at them, and I made a decision. Not out of vengeance. Not out of rage. Just clarity. I would never be forgotten again. The next morning, I dressed in black leggings, an oversized sweatshirt, and a low bun. I needed air.
Coffee.
Anything to keep from imploding. I wandered down through the cobbled streets of the historic district, still thinking about the wine bar. As I passed by the street corner where the bar was located, I slowed. A woman stood outside, unlocking the gate of the place next door, a stunning glass and brick venue I'd never noticed before. It looked new, untouched, closed for renovation. "Excuse me," I said, when her insurance fell through. I drove Dad to appointments when his knees started failing. And I never once asked for anything in return. They called me low maintenance. Said I was so easy to love. But easy to love doesn't mean visible. It doesn't mean valued. It means convenient. 2 years ago, on Thanksgiving, Rachel arrived 2 hours late with her 3 kids and still managed to be the main event. My cranberry sauce recipe, the one everyone used to compliment, got pushed to the back of the counter. Michael told a story about a business deal, and everyone cheered like he'd cured cancer. When I mentioned my small promotion at work, finally landing the role of creative lead after 5 years, Mom just nodded and said, "That's nice, sweetie." "Oh, Rachel, did you bring that banana pudding from Trader Joe's again?" I learned that night to stop sharing. Even my apartment had become an invisible sanctuary. Small, quiet mine. A place where I didn't have to fight to be heard. But I never stopped trying. I texted,
Called.
sent gifts. And year after year, I waited for the moment they'd finally say, "Vanessa, we see you. We're proud of you." It never came. The worst part wasn't the absence of attention. It was the slow realization that nothing I did was ever enough to be considered part of the inner circle. They used words like family is everything and blood is thicker, but somehow I was always left holding the empty end of that sentiment. As if the definition of family didn't stretch wide enough to include someone like me, quiet, soft-spoken, too emotionally honest. One time, I asked Rachel, gently, if she thought I'd done something to upset everyone. We were at a family picnic. She was slicing watermelon, sunglasses perched on her head like a movie star.
She didn't even look at me.
"Don't be dramatic, Ness," she said, laughing. "You always overthink everything." I nodded. I smiled. I helped clean up while everyone else played volleyball. Years passed, and my tolerance for being unseen grew thinner. I watched as Rachel posted pictures from spa trips with my mom, trips I was never invited to. I watched Michael be called like a son by my father during his toast at the Carter Foundation dinner. I watched my sister's kids get congratulated for every painting, every participation medal, while my own art, yes, I painted in private, was ignored, dismissed, or never known. It wasn't resentment. It was grief. The grief of being alive in a family that treated you like a ghost. So when they didn't invite me to that piano bar dinner, it wasn't a shock. It was a confirmation. The final nail in the coffin. But what they didn't know, what they had never taken the time to learn, was that I was no longer the version of Vanessa who would sit quietly and accept scraps. Something inside me had been building. A quiet clarity. Not the kind that makes you scream or slam doors, but the kind that makes you buy the venue next door. The night after I saw the party on Rachel's Instagram story, I couldn't sleep. I stared at my bedroom ceiling, lit only by the glow of my phone screen, trying to figure out what hurt more, the deliberate exclusion or the fact that I wasn't even surprised anymore. They had gone all out. Rented dresses, shiny cocktails, live music, sparkling candles, and laughter that echoed through the phone speakers even though I hadn't been there. The caption read, "Family night out celebrating our favorite people in the world."
Our
Favorite.
people.
And I wasn't one of them. I didn't call. I didn't text. But the next afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Hey, sweetheart," she said casually, as if nothing had happened. "Just checking in. How's your week been?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I saw the pictures," I said. My voice was even.
She paused.
"Oh, that? That wasn't really a big deal. It was just something small. Rachel planned it last minute. Last minute. The photos had matching outfits. A customized cake. A banner. Nothing about it had been last minute. You could have called, I said quietly. Her tone sharpened, that defensive edge she used whenever I brought up my feelings. Vanessa, don't do this. It's not like it was personal. Not personal. It's just for the best. That was always the line, wasn't it? It wasn't personal when they took Michael on a weekend trip and didn't tell me. It wasn't personal when Rachel got the family heirloom necklace because she's the firstborn. It wasn't personal when I wasn't invited to the family brunch after my father's retirement party. None of it was ever personal. And yet, somehow, it was always me who was left out. I didn't cry.
Not this time.
I just let the silence do the talking. Are you still there? Mom asked. I'm here, I said, voice cold. Well, let's not make it weird. We were just trying to keep things small.
Small.
Apparently, small didn't include the person who'd once pulled off an entire surprise anniversary dinner for them when Dad turned 60. Small didn't include the daughter who always showed up early, stayed late, and made sure everyone else felt seen. I ended the call shortly after. 3 days later, Rachel texted. Rachel. Hey Ness. Just wanted to say I hope you're not upset about the dinner. It honestly just got too big too fast, and I didn't think it would be your vibe anyway. Love you. Didn't think it would be my vibe? Was being left out my vibe now? I didn't respond. I didn't have it in me to be gracious anymore. And yet, the messages kept coming.
Mom.
I know you're sensitive, honey, but try to see this with a calm mind. No one meant to exclude you. It just happened. Michael. Yo. We thought you were working that night. Didn't want to bother you. Aunt Darlene. Don't be dramatic, sweetie. It wasn't some grand scheme. It was always the same pattern. They mess up, I express pain, they minimize it, and I end up feeling like the unreasonable one. I didn't fight. I didn't explain. But inside me, a quiet, irreversible decision was forming. A week later, the piano bar posted a thank you reel to their socials, tagging the Carter family. The event had a name. Carter Family Appreciation Night. I clicked through the tagged photos again. Every smiling face. Every plate of expensive hors d'oeuvres. Every clink of wine glasses. And then I opened another tab. I typed in event venues next to Blue Velvet Piano Lounge, Atlanta. There it was. A small, chic space directly next door. The Rose Room. A high-ceilinged, Art Deco-style venue with golden arches, velvet walls, and a glowing grand chandelier. Available for private booking. I called.
Booked it.
Paid the deposit. No questions asked. That week, I sat quietly at work, designing campaigns and building branding decks, but something about me had changed. My coworkers noticed. You okay? Mia from accounting asked. You seem calm, but dangerously calm. I smiled. I'm fine. I wasn't planning revenge. I was reclaiming space. Space they never offered, so I built it myself. They wouldn't invite me?
Fine.
I'd host something they'd never forget, not out of pettiness, but power. Not to make them hurt, but to make sure I never hurt like that again. I started small. Hired a caterer. Reached out to a few friends who had also been overlooked, underappreciated, quietly pushed aside in their own families. I invited coworkers who had celebrated my wins more than my family ever had. I invited the barista who remembered my name when no one else did. I invited the old neighbor who used to say, "You were always the polite one." People showed up, not because they were obligated, but because they wanted to. The night of the event, I stood at the window of the Rose Room, looking through the sheer curtains. The piano bar next door was loud, glittering. A family reunion in full swing. But no one noticed me. And I realized, for the first time, I didn't want them to. Because inside my venue, the music was soft, the laughter real, the candles flickering like little flames of dignity. Someone toasted me with a glass of champagne. To the woman who finally saw her worth. I smiled. Not bitterly. Not triumphantly. But peacefully. After that night at the Rose Room, something inside me clicked into place. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't even pride.
It was peace. Cold. Steady. Silent.
Like the kind of peace that comes when you stop waiting for someone to open a locked door and instead walk away from the entire building. I didn't tell anyone in my family about the event. I didn't post photos. I didn't send a cryptic quote or write a dramatic caption. I didn't hint. I didn't gloat. They didn't know it ever happened. And that was the power in it. The next morning, I opened my banking app. I scrolled down to the auto transfer I'd set up 3 years ago, $300 every month to Mom's account. I just muted. Out of sight. Out of sound. Out of spirit. At work, I stayed longer. Not because I had to, but because it was mine. My ideas, my hours, my recognition. I started speaking up more in meetings, suggesting bolder moves. I pitched an entire branding redesign to a major client, and they said yes. My boss pulled me aside and said, "Whatever's gotten into you lately, don't lose it. You're unstoppable." Unstoppable. What a word. Not dramatic. Not over-emotional. Not too much. Just unstoppable. One night, I came home and opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. Inside were old letters, birthday cards, printed emails, and random little notes I had kept for my family over the years, things that had once meant something. A crayon drawing from Rachel when we were kids. A sticky note from Mom saying, "Thanks for dinner, you're a lifesaver." A printout of a text from Dad that read, "Proud of you, kid." I sat there, sifting through them like pieces of a puzzle I no longer wanted to finish. One by one, I tore them. Not with anger. Not as a ritual. Just closure. I lit a small flame in my kitchen sink and let them burn. Ashes don't argue. They just settle. A few weeks later, I got a text from Rachel. "Rachel. Hey. Family brunch this Sunday, same place as always. Hope you can come." I didn't respond. She followed up 2 days later. "Rachel. Hey, did you get my message? Just making sure I sent it to the right Vanessa, LOL." Still, I stayed quiet. 3 days after that, a message from Mom.
Mom.
"Vanessa, please don't be cold. Whatever's going on, let's just talk." But I didn't want to talk. I had always talked. Explained. Clarified. Justified. And nothing ever changed. So now I was done talking. I stopped checking who viewed my Instagram stories. I stopped wondering if they would call. I stopped hoping they'd notice I was gone. Because absence wasn't my punishment for them, it was my gift to me. I was no longer auditioning for a seat at a table that only fed crumbs. My apartment changed too. I took down the family portraits, replaced them with framed art I actually liked, bright sunbursts, modern lines, messy colors. I donated the old quilt my mother gave me that I'd always felt obligated to keep. I started hosting dinners. Small ones. Meaningful ones. Friends who stayed after dessert. Coworkers who brought wine. A neighbor who said, "This place feels like you." That was the difference. With them, I didn't have to shrink to be included. I could expand. Weeks turned to months. Rachel messaged less. Michael sent a random meme once, then disappeared. Even Mom's guilt texts became spaced out. Still filled with, "We just want peace and let's start fresh." But I didn't take the bait. I didn't need peace with them to have peace within me. And then one day, walking past the piano bar on a crisp Saturday afternoon, I stopped. They were hosting another event. A banner read, "Carter Family Day." The same people, the same laughter, the same setting. But I didn't feel a pull anymore. I didn't ache. I didn't flinch. I just smiled because I had built something next door. Something that didn't need permission. Something they never knew how to give. Line. For the first time, my silence wasn't fear. It was freedom. That line came to me as I sipped tea that night. Lights low. Music soft. I wrote it down. Taped it to my mirror. Read it every morning. Not as a mantra, but as a memory. A reminder of what I survived. What I released. And who I became when I stopped trying to be what they never saw. It was early spring when I got the message. I was sitting in my favorite corner booth at a local coffee shop, reading a novel and sipping lavender chai, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it first.
Probably spam.
But it buzzed again. This time a voicemail. I clicked play, half distracted. Hi, I hope this is Vanessa Carter. I'm sorry to reach out like this. You don't know me, but I think we've crossed paths. My name's Ellie Torres. I think you helped my grandmother last year? At that community clinic on 8th Street. My heart paused. Ellie Torres. That name tickled the edge of my memory. She kept talking. My grandmother was the older lady with the green sweater, always cracking bad jokes. You stayed after hours once to help her when no one else would. She never forgot that. And neither did I. She sighed. I know this is random, but I overheard something weird at a party last week. Your sister, Rachel?
She was talking about you. Not nicely.
And honestly, it didn't match the woman I remember. The woman who gave up her lunch to help an old lady with nowhere to go. I stared at the phone. She continued. I just wanted you to know, not everyone believes the stories they tell about you. I see you. Thank you for what you did. It mattered.
Click.
The message ended. I sat in stunned silence for a moment. Not because it hurt, but because it healed. In all my years of sacrificing, showing up, staying quiet, doing the right thing, no one in my family had ever said anything like that. But this stranger? She saw me.
She remembered me.
She thought I mattered. And not because I cooked or paid or smiled on command, but because I showed up when no one else did. That small act had created a ripple I never expected. I scrolled back to old texts. I remembered the day her grandmother came in frail, disoriented, forgotten by the system. Everyone was rushing to close early. But I stayed, brought her water, laughed at her jokes, helped her fill out insurance forms, walked her to a cab. I never told anyone about it. Because that's what decent people do, right? We don't do it for applause. We just do it. But now, that kindness had come full circle. I replayed the voicemail 3 more times that night. Not because I needed validation, but because it was the first time I truly believed the problem was never me. A few days later, I got a DM on Instagram. It was from one of Rachel's old college friends, a girl named Layla who I remembered from a few Thanksgivings ago. Layla. Hey Vanessa, sorry to be random, but I wanted to tell you something. I was at that Rose Room event, and I saw what happened. I didn't say anything that night, didn't want to cause drama. But you handled it with more grace than I've ever seen. Just wanted to say it didn't go unnoticed. Then a second message. Layla. Also, your venue next door? Way better. The vibe, the food, the energy, it felt real. Your place had heart. Everyone said so. I blinked. She was there? People noticed? I had spent months thinking I was invisible, disposable, but apparently not to everyone. That same week, Aunt Darlene called. I let it go to voicemail. She sounded hesitant. Vanessa, honey, I didn't know what they were planning. If I had, I would have said something. I just thought it was a small gathering. But then I saw the photos. I saw your place.
And wow.
You outdid them. I'm proud of you. She hesitated. I always thought you were special. Not loud, not flashy, but real. And I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner. I sat at my window that night, looking out at the city. Lights blinked like a heartbeat. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not through the filtered lens of family hierarchy. Not as the forgotten sibling. Not as the dependable helper. But as me. I went back to Ellie's voicemail one last time and saved it in a special folder labeled Truth. Not because I needed to replay it again, but because it reminded me the lies they built were never stronger than the truth I lived. Validation didn't need to come in thunderclaps. Sometimes it was a whisper in a voicemail, a private DM, a quiet nod from a person who watched, waited, and chose to speak. That was the twist. That outsider saw me more clearly than the people who claimed to love me. And maybe that was okay. Because sometimes, family isn't who you're born to. It's who recognizes your light and protects it. It started with a comment on my venue's Facebook page. Beautiful job, Vanessa. The place is stunning. Can't wait to book it for a family gathering. The name? Rachel Carter. My sister. The same one who planned a party and didn't invite me. The same one who stood, smiling, in front of my place like it was a joke. Now she was posting hearts? It felt performative.
Strategic.
But I said nothing. Not a like. Not a reply. I just watched. And that's when the rest followed. A text from my mother. Hey, sweetheart. Saw your venue online. Looks amazing. Things got a little tense back then, huh? Let's reset. Maybe coffee soon. Reset. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I was wrong. Just reset. Like I was a computer program, not a human being who'd been dismissed, ignored, cut out of my own family. Then came the call from Uncle George. He rarely got involved in family messes. But now he suddenly had time? Hey, kiddo. Just calling to say I'm proud of you. Everyone's talking about that event you hosted. You've really made something of yourself.
He paused.
Listen, your mom's been feeling a little bad about how things played out.
I think she meant well. You know how she is.
Sensitive. You should reach out. You should reach out. As if I owed them closure. A week later, a formal email landed in my inbox. From Rachel. Subject line. Let's talk, for real this time.
The body?
Hey Ness. I know things have been weird. I honestly didn't mean to hurt you. The party was just a last-minute thing, and it got complicated. I wish we'd talked sooner. Also, some people are asking questions online about what happened. Could we maybe make a post together? Show we're good? Would help clear the air. Let me know. Hugs and kisses. There it was. The real reason. Not guilt. Image.
They weren't worried about me.
They were worried about perception. The story had spread. People were whispering. And now they needed me to fix it. To pretend it hadn't happened. To erase it with a photo or a quote or a forced hug. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Silence was loud enough. And it terrified them. A few days later, I got a call from Jenna, one of Rachel's longtime friends. She sounded awkward. Hey, Ness, this is a little uncomfortable, but Rachel asked me to reach out. She thinks you might be holding a grudge, and it's, like, not a great look for the family. People are getting the wrong idea. I laughed bitterly. Did you ever stop to wonder if maybe people are finally getting the right idea? She was quiet. I'm just the messenger, she mumbled.
Exactly.
Everyone was just the messenger. No one took responsibility. They just delivered messages, adjusted optics, tried to keep the brand intact. But my life wasn't a family brand. It was my truth. Then came the real kicker. An invitation. Mailed. Cream envelope. Gold lettering. You are cordially invited to a Carter family unity brunch.
Unity.
As if you could erase exclusion with a buffet table and a smile. Inside was a note in Rachel's handwriting. Let's put the past behind us. You'll always be my sister. I looked at it for a long time. Then I walked it over to my shredder and fed it through, one slow inch at a time. No drama. No speech. Just quiet clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Clear on who I was. Clear on what I'd built. Clear on what I would no longer tolerate. Their unity had come too late, and for the wrong reasons. It wasn't built on accountability. It was built on fear of exposure. Fear that people might finally see what I had known all along. That I was never the problem. I was the proof of their favoritism, their manipulation, their silence. That week, I posted a photo on my venue's page. Me, standing in front of the doors, smiling. Caption? You don't have to show up where you're not celebrated. Sometimes, building your own space is the most powerful thing you'll ever do. No hashtags. No names. Just truth. Within minutes, it was shared over 100 times. People commented, "This." Felt that in my soul. Tagging my sister because same. And somewhere I knew Rachel saw it. I knew my mother read it. But this time I didn't care. Because their damage control didn't work on me anymore. They could craft whatever narrative they wanted. They could say I was distant.
Cold. Dramatic.
But anyone who knew me, really knew me, knew better. They knew what I'd endured. And more importantly, they knew what I had risen into. So when the calls stopped, I didn't flinch. When the messages dried up, I didn't mourn. Because I wasn't losing a family. I was shedding a performance. And what was left
Was peace.
It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The venue was closed for the day. I had just wrapped a weekend wedding, and my feet were sore from all the last-minute cleanup. I sat in the office, sipping a lukewarm latte, when my phone buzzed with a notification. One new message request on Instagram. I almost ignored it. But something about the name caught my attention. Delaney Simmons. It rang a bell. I opened the message. Hi, Vanessa. You probably don't remember me, but years ago, you helped my mother outside a grocery store when her car battery died. She was having a panic attack. You stayed with her, called someone to jump her car, and even walked her inside to buy groceries afterward. You didn't know it then, but she had just left an abusive marriage, and that was the first time anyone had treated her with patience and kindness in months. She talked about you for years. Last week, I recognized your name when someone posted about your venue. I realized it was you. Just wanted to say you made her feel like she mattered.
Thank you.
Delaney. I stared at the screen. My hands trembled a little, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming feeling of being seen. Not for the business I built, not for the photos or the parties or the narrative, but for a small, human moment, one I barely remembered. And yet for someone else, it had meant everything. I wrote back. Delaney, I remember that day. I remember your mom, her name was Sheila, right? She was kind, but scared. I just wanted her to know she wasn't alone. Thank you for reaching out. You have no idea how much this means to me today. That night I cried, not because I was broken, but because something inside had healed. All those years of giving, helping, showing up, even when no one acknowledged it, weren't wasted. They were planted. And now, the seeds were blooming. A few days later, a handwritten letter arrived at the venue. No return address. Inside, a folded card with delicate calligraphy. You don't know me personally, but I recently attended a wedding at your venue. I watched the way you moved around, fixing details, calming nerves, smiling at guests. My own daughter was supposed to get married last year, but she passed away before the date. I thought I'd never attend another wedding again. But being in your space, watching how loved everyone felt, helped me believe that joy is still possible. Thank you for that. A grateful mother. I held the card to my chest. For so long, I'd been chasing acknowledgement from the people who couldn't give it. Now, without asking, I was receiving it from strangers.
People who saw me, not as the black sheep.
Not as the forgotten sister, but as a woman who created joy, who radiated calm, who made space for others, even when her own space had been denied. 1 week later, during a soft launch party for a local businesswoman, a young woman approached me near the buffet table. Hi, she said nervously. You probably don't remember, but I was an intern at your old office job years ago. You were the only one who ever asked how I was doing. When my dad died, you left a note on my desk with a Starbucks gift card. I still have that note. My eyes widened. I remember that. You wore your hair in a high bun every day. She laughed. That's me. Anyway, I've started my own event company now, and I'd love to collaborate someday if you're open. My throat tightened. I'd love that. She smiled and walked away. And I realized something then. The people I touched, they remembered. Not because I shouted, not because I proved myself, but because kindness lingers. Even when unacknowledged, it leaves fingerprints on the heart. Later that night, I sat on the venue's balcony, watching the city lights twinkle. I thought about how desperate I once was to be noticed, accepted, loved. I had twisted myself inside out trying to earn something that should have been freely given.
And now?
Now I sat in a space I had built with my own hands. A space that echoed with laughter and dancing and music. A space where other people were celebrated, just as they were. And somehow, in creating that for others, I had created it for myself too. The messages kept coming. A DM from a woman who read my Instagram caption and said it gave her the courage to walk away from her own toxic family. An email from a nonprofit asking if I'd consider hosting events for survivors of domestic abuse. A thank you card from the florist who worked my last event. All different people, all unrelated, but each one saying the same thing, in their own way. You matter. We see you. Thank you. I had spent so many years wanting one person to see me. My mother, my sister, my family. But in their blindness, I had accidentally become a lighthouse for others. And now the light was coming back to me. It started with a voicemail. I hadn't heard my mother's voice in nearly 9 months. The screen lit up. Voicemail from Mom. I hesitated. My thumb hovered. Then I pressed play. Asterisk, Vanessa. I heard about the venue. I drove by last week with Diane. It looks big and beautiful. Look, I think maybe we all got a little carried away last year. Things were tense, but life's short. And you're still part of this family. We're planning a New Year's dinner at Diane's place. You should come. Call me back. Love you. Asterisk. I listened in silence. Not one word of apology. Not one acknowledgement of the wedding I'd been cut out of. Or the things they said. Or the way they pretended I didn't exist. Just a rewrite of history. The classic, it wasn't that bad. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. A few days later, a letter arrived. This time from Diane. I knew her handwriting before I even opened the envelope. It was thick cream stationery with gold lettering at the top. Diane K. Albright. She'd always had monogrammed everything. The letter was polite. Too polite. Vanessa, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to extend a personal invitation to our annual New Year's gathering. This year feels different. I think it would mean a lot to Mom if you came. Let's start fresh. We're sisters. We shouldn't let misunderstandings go on forever. Best. Diane. It read like a corporate memo. No warmth. No ownership. Just
PR.
I folded it neatly and slid it back into the envelope. Then I walked outside and lit a match. I didn't burn it in anger. I burned it in peace. A few nights later, there was a knock at my door. It was unexpected. Most people text first. I opened it slowly. And there she was.
Mom.
Standing on my porch like she hadn't ghosted me for nearly a year. She looked smaller somehow. Tired. She smiled faintly. I was nearby. Thought I'd stop in. I said nothing. Just waited. I saw the place, she said. It's beautiful. I mean, really beautiful. You've done quite a lot. Thank you, I said, voice even. She shifted her weight. Diane's been asking about you. We're all just wondering if maybe this year, things could be different. Still, I didn't speak. She took a breath. Can I come in? I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me. No, I said softly. You can't. She blinked. I'm not angry, I continued. But I'm also not confused. I know exactly how I was treated. And I know it wasn't love, it was control. Silence. Shame. Vanessa. I'm not here to rehash it, I said. I'm here to be clear. I'm building something different now. Something rooted in peace and respect and actual love. And you can't bring that old weight into this new space. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I don't hate you, I added. But I won't pretend anymore. I won't keep auditioning for affection that should have been unconditional. She nodded slowly. Then she turned and walked down the porch steps. And I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just stood there, free. That week, Diane sent one more email. Subject line. Still hoping. It was long, rambling, defensive in parts. She mentioned how stressful wedding planning had been. How Mom had been in a bad place. How maybe it wasn't handled perfectly, but that family is family. I stared at the blinking cursor. Then, I typed one sentence. Thank you for your message. I wish you well. But I won't be attending. And then I clicked send. There was no explosion. No shouting match. No dramatic monologue. Just quiet. And that silence? It didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. The kind I had earned. The kind I had built, brick by brick. With every boundary I held. Every call I didn't return. Every space I protected from people who only saw me as useful, not worthy. The day of their New Year's dinner came and went. I didn't check social media. I didn't wonder what they were wearing. I didn't imagine the empty chair that could have been mine. Instead, I hosted a small gathering of my own. A few local vendors. Some newlywed couples who had become friends. My assistant Mila, who had started calling me her venue mom.
We laughed.
We toasted. We lit sparklers in the courtyard and made wishes. And, in that moment, I knew I hadn't lost a family. I had chosen peace. Some people only want you around if they can control your script. But I had written my own story now. And in this version, the girl who wasn't invited bought the whole damn building next door and filled it with people who celebrated her, not silenced her. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I miss them, if I wish things had gone differently, if I would have shown up had they just invited me. And the truth is, yes, part of me used to ache for that seat at the table. But I've learned something far more valuable than being included. Peace is more precious than proximity. It's not about being at the table. It's about who you become when they stop pretending to save you a seat. I used to think I had to explain myself, to justify the boundaries, to defend the silence, to prove I was worthy of love.
But now?
I don't explain anymore, because I finally understand something I want you to hear too. You're not too emotional. You're not too distant. You're not too much. You are just too real for people who only know how to love you when you're small, quiet, and compliant. I don't know who needs to hear this today, but if you've ever been left out, if you've ever had to watch people you love pretend not to see you, if you've ever opened a message, read it 3 times, and realized that the apology wasn't real, then let me say this. Your absence is just as powerful as your presence. Sometimes, the most divine revenge isn't rage. It's elevation. It's evolution. It's not needing them to clap anymore because you built your own stage. You don't have to post about it. You don't have to explain it. You don't even have to block them. Just grow. Quietly. Boldly. Freely. Because when they don't invite you, that's not the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning. The beginning of self-respect. The beginning of boundaries. The beginning of joy that doesn't require approval. So here's my final message. Not just from Vanessa, but from every woman who has ever walked away with grace. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them squirm. And while they do, you rise. You rise higher than their gossip. Higher than their dismissals. Higher than the box they tried to keep you in. Because you were never made to shrink just to fit in their frame. You were born to stand tall, even if it means standing alone. And when they didn't invite you, you didn't just survive. You bought the venue next door, and you filled it with love they could never fake.